Yo YouTube! Welcome back to my world. This is a video for yesterday, which is or was Monday the 20th of November. I've thought about how to do this video, and I'm on a bit of a journey right now, plenty of time. I'm going to just indulge you with a narrative tale of my day. It's kind of my style. If you don't like it, that's fine. Sit back and relax and listen to the trials and tribulations of my day yesterday. It might at one point require you to rewind and listen to it again because it gets complicated at one point. And I'll try and be clear, but because of the way my mind works, I can't miss out any of the details, because otherwise it will just screw my head up. So I'm going to try and explain the middle job in an excruciating amount of detail so you can get to experience what it was like. So strap in, get a cup of tea, and dunk those biscuits. Right, yesterday, Monday, I had a job booked in from the week before, going from Spalding to Lincoln. It was an 8:30 pickup, and it was a small van job. It was something like 55 miles, I think it was, can't remember, and it was £60 I put on that bid. And I arrived about a minute past the time, no problem at all, and picked up the load. I'm just trying to remember where it was now. My memory is so bad. This is why I like to do the videos on the same day. I'm going to try and see if my notes remind me about what I was doing. It was one pallet. Oh yes, I remember. It was 1 meter by 1 meter by 1.4 meter pallet. So reasonably high, but nothing that my van can't deal with. But when I was given the job, the guy did check I could take that height. And that was going, as I said, to Lincoln, or just outside of Lincoln, which I thought would be a really good place to sort of get work from. I mean, it's not that it's a really busy place, but it's just there's not many drivers there. So when there is work, there is a steady supply of work from Lincoln, and if there is any work, there's usually very few drivers around to take it. So I find it quite a good place for me to start my day from, or at least get to. So I finished that job. I was offloaded at 10:30, and I was looking for another job. And that went quite easily. I thought at this point in the day it's all going quite easily. And then a job came up that was on the way as I was delivering this first job came up from an LN3 postcode. I was going to LN1, and I thought, well, that's going to be close. So I put a bid on. It was for I think it was short wheelbase, short wheelbase job, and the amount of miles, I can't remember what it was. It was something like 50 miles. No, that wasn't. It was sort of like it's quite short, wasn't it? It was about 36 miles, something like that. About an hour's journey. And I bid £55. I was going to bid £50, it's like the kind of my minimum, but I thought it's a bit awkward, it's a bit out of the way. 55, and as I was still doing the job I was on, I put £55 on, and if I don't get it, I've got a chance to get a job when I get to Lincoln. I was thinking, should I go 50 or 60? So I went in between the two. That's why I did 55. So it was going to an airfield, but it actually is an industrial estate, or like an old airfield. It's not actually a working airfield at the moment. And I arrived. So this is where it gets complicated now. So I'm going to try and remember in order what happened. And I want you to this is really for newer drivers who might come up with difficult situations, and how I've dealt with it, and why. I'm going to explain to you what I did and why I did it, my thinking behind it, and you can decide for yourself whether you do the same if you're an experienced driver or whether you do something different. I'm not saying it's particularly right or wrong. I felt it right at the time, and I suppose in hindsight, I'm saying I'd do the same thing. So let's start from the start. So I had a. I was told I was collecting one pallet. I had a reference number in the notes that the shipper had given me, but nothing else. So I thought that'd be all right. It's a pallet, uh, and it's a farm where I'm going. Collect the pallet, get the reference number. Should be easy. There was a lot of notes about the shipper's terms and conditions, but nothing else to help with this particular job. The actual address that I was going to, there's a name of a company which I always like to have, and as I drove up, I could see that the site I was going to was basically this company. So it wasn't an industrial estate; it was basically one big site for this company. So first I'd been there, so I went into where the reception car park, and I thought I'd go to reception and ask them what I should do in terms of collecting. And I saw a sign saying go around the back to the production office if you're a driver. So I parked in their car park, walked around the back of the building to the production office, and I gave them the reference number. So there's an office of people. First of all, they were all chatting with each other, ignoring me, but I'm okay with that. And then somebody very kindly just came up about half a minute later and said, "How can I help you?" And I gave her the reference number, and she looked a bit confused, but then she said, "I'll get back to you." She went back to her desk, did a bit of typing, and then rang somebody, and they said, "Oh yes, this is for the person's name. Let's call him, I'll make up a name, let's call him Steve. No, let's call him um, Simon. Yeah, Simon's a good name." What was I saying? So she said, "Oh, Simon will meet you," and so she then passed me on to somebody else in the office, and he told me where to go. So he said, "You go down here, turn right at this point, and go to a back of the yard, and you're looking for a rundown shed." And so I looked at where he was pointing, and it looked quite reasonably easy. So I thought, yeah, I know where I'm going. I've got a name of a department that I'm going to. So the name of the department was the environmental department I was going to. So I walked back round the building, got into my van, and then tried to find the way in, which was there was a weighbridge, and then there was a road next to it, which was two barriers, one with a weighbridge, one with a normal road. And I thought, well, I'm not quite sure where I'm meant to go on the weighbridge or not. And I can see me going to the right-hand road, which hadn't got a weighbridge, and them going, "Go on the weighbridge, you got to go there before you come into our site." So I thought, I'll go on the weighbridge and then press the button. But the button is one which is really high up because it's for lorries. So I had to stand on the side of my van and press this button, and there's no button on the other side of the road, so there's no way of me indicating how that was there in any other way. Then it was answered, and I explained I was trying to get into the environmental part to meet Simon, and she was a bit confused. I said, "Well, just manually put in your code." I said, "I can't. I'm not part of this. I'm not in a lorry. I'm in a van, just a courier." And so she said, "I have to make a phone call." So she made a phone call to Simon, and I could hear them talking, and he was talking back over the intercom, and he indicated that he knew where he was expecting me, and she said, "Oh, I'll let you in, and he'll meet you." So this is where "he'll meet you" was a bit ambiguous. So I taking the instructions from the first person, drove into the site. In fact, she reported that. She opened the gate that was the one that wasn't the weighbridge. I had to reverse off the weighbridge, go to the right hand side and go through that fence. So I was muttering to myself there. They must have seen me on that weighbridge. There must be a camera. But in my head I was thinking they were just choosing to cause me grief. Anyway, so I got reversed off the weighbridge, went onto the other, into the gate that's open, and then followed the instructions I was given from the production office to go to the end of the site. And I got to where I roughly thought it was, and I couldn't see environmental anywhere, the department. So I stopped a low loader guy who was working there, who was a bit huffy because I stopped him, but did help. I said, "Do you know where environmental is?" And he said, "I had no idea. You could try through that gate. There's a building behind us." So I did what he said, went through the gate, went up towards the back. There was a building that wasn't to do with their company, but then there was like a waste area behind. And I thought, well, environmental could be to do with waste. So I carried on following that road, and there was a big sort of rickety shed at the end with sort of pallets in it, pallets of chemicals. So I thought, I'm probably in the right area, but there was no one there. So I then rang the shipper. After I looked around a bit, trying to find someone. I then rang the shipper, and the person I spoke to on the line was not the person that gave me. Sorry. So I spoke to a lady who was the person that gave me the job. So she knew what I was there for and knew a bit about what was going on. I say a bit because it wasn't an awful lot. So I said to her, I think I'm in the right area, but I'm not quite sure whether I'm in the right place. I'm trying to meet Simon, and he's not here yet. Could you possibly give me his number, and then I'll call him and meet him on site? And so the shipper said, I'll get back to you. So I was waiting there for another couple of minutes, and then she called back, and she gave me a number. I thought, brilliant, it's a mobile number, brilliant. So and she said, it's either for Simon or Heidi. Again, I'm making up that name. And so I rang the number, and Heidi answered. And I said, "Oh, I've just been given this number because I'm trying to meet Simon on site." Blah blah blah. And she was confused because she's based in Kings Lynn, and I wasn't in Kings Lynn. So so eventually I got to the point where I explained, what I was trying to do, and she said that she would have to let Simon know, but he doesn't have a phone. Because the phone number that I was given was the only phone for them. So for Heidi and Simon, Simon's on site, but he doesn't have a phone. So he has to go to the office to get any phone calls. So I she really couldn't help me. I said, okay, fine. In that case, because you can't help with this, I'll go back to the office and just see if I can get them to help me on site. So I drove back towards the production office, and then a guy was walking towards me, sort of waving, and I was hoping that was Simon. And I went and put my hand down, put my window down, and it was Simon. And we met basically at the point at which I'd asked the guy originally where environmental was, and he didn't know, the sort of forklift guy. And Simon said, after I explained why I couldn't find him, so I said, just park yourself over there and we'll get you loaded up. So I was actually, when I'd asked the guy who was on the low loader, I was right outside where I was meant to be. So I really don't feel like I did anything wrong there. I asked someone who was standing outside the door I should have been at, and he didn't know where I was meant to be. So we got there in the end. Oh yes, by the way, I was meant to be here at 12 o'clock. I actually arrived at 11:30 because it was a booking that was ahead of time, and by the time I'd found Simon, it was now 12 o'clock. So I was kind of on time, and I'd spent half an hour walking to the production office, getting in the weighbridge, going to the wrong place, getting to my place. So all's well. I thought that ends well. I thought, excellent, we've got someone else who knows what he's talking about. He's expecting me. He knows where I'm going to be. So all good. No, it wasn't quite that simple, I'm afraid. Now, at this point, I'm going to have to give you some terms I'm making up for the rest of the story. So, Simon, name redacted, I'm going to call him Customer 1. He works for a firm that produces a chemical. He is supplying that to customer 2, who is the customer that the shipper is working for, that I'm working for. So the shipper I'm working for is working for customer 2. And customer 3 is the person the customer 2 is serving, and that's who I'm going to deliver to. I'm delivering to that third customer. So I'm with customer 1. He's produced the materials. I give him the reference number that I've been given, and he says, that doesn't match what I've got for you today. And he says, I know what's happened here. That's a reference number for a pallet that should have been collected last week, and for some reason wasn't collected. He says, I've got another reference number here for you, which I took down, and this is for 2 pallets of the same material, same chemical. So I said, okay. I say so. By this point, so he'd driven out with his forklift with this 1 pallet on. And I could see it was 20 lots of 20 litre containers of chemicals. So my first question was, is this ADR? And he said, no, it's not. Okay. Second question I said is, how much does that weigh? And he said, because when he said 2 pallets, I said, how much does that weigh? And I roughly thought, in my head, I thought, well, 20 litres times 20 is 400 litres, so maybe it's 400 kilograms, roughly. So I can take 2 of those. Size-wise, it's just a little pallet. I'd probably call it a Euro pallet, but I was guessing 400 kilograms. He got a calculator out and was using the relative molecular mass of the chemical and the volume. And he came with a figure of around about 600 kilograms. And I said to him, I can't take 2 of those. That's too heavy for my van. I can only take 1,100 at most. So I said, and he looked surprised. He looked like, you got a big van there, 2 pallets go on there quite easily. And I said, I'm just bring the shipper here. I mean, I have got a solution. So before I go on with the story, my brain goes into problem solving. So I want to be a useful sort of cog in this wheel. So my brain's going, I can't take both of them. Customer 1 wants to deliver 2 pallets today. He said to me it was urgent. Therefore, I need to help him achieve that task. I can't take it in one go. What I can do is do it in 2 goes. It's only an hour away. Drive with one, come back and take the other one. But I have to get permission from the shipper to agree a different price to do that. So I rang my shipper, and this time I got through to a different guy who wasn't the person who'd done the load. So this was a male person. For the sake of argument, let's call him Steve, because I can't really think of any of the S names. So on the shipper Steve said, the lady I'm dealing with is unavailable. So I said to him, this is what's happening. I've got, the reference number isn't correct. This is the reference number I've got. I told him that. And he wants me to take 2 pallets. I can do that perhaps in 2 trips, but I can't do it in 1 trip. And he said, I'll have to get back to you and talk to my customer. He was talking about customer number 2. So I put the phone down and I waited. And while I was waiting, I took a photo of the label. I looked carefully, was there any UN number? There was no UN number. I looked at the label. It did have like a couple of. It had an attention, like an exclamation mark, and an attention hazard warning sign, and like a corrosive hazard warning sign. Hazard warning sign. And so I spoke to the guy who had produced the material. He wasn't just a forklift driver. He was actually the guy who was the owner of the business who was selling this chemical. And I said, well, why is it not ADR then? And he said, the chemicals that go into making it by themselves would be classed as ADR, and therefore by law they have to have a label on that says it contains corrosive materials. But when they're combined, it combines to make a chemical that's not, it's inert, and is not ADR compliant. Which made sense to me. I was for many years a science teacher, so the idea of scientific chemical reactions producing inert substances from dangerous ones makes perfect sense to me. And he needs to know what he's talking about, and I trusted him. So I got him to. I wrote on the pod. This is a non ADR load, and got him to sign that statement as a bit of an extra backup. Also, because I was waiting, I had to quick look on Google at the ADR requirements, and I couldn't see when I looked at the chemical name. I couldn't see any obvious dangers from an ADR point of view. So I think the fact he told me it wasn't ADR. There was no UN number. I suppose the two main things I went by, and also just a bit of common sense. Oh yeah. So I did look at the label. The warning on there was not to get this chemical in your eyes or swallow it. And if you did, you had to wash your eyes out and seek medical attention. And I also found out that the reason what it's used for, it was effectively a strong disinfectant for sewage tanks. So I kind of reassured myself that it was fine for me to take, but I couldn't take 2 pallets of it. So I was telling Simon's the forklift driver guy. So Steve, who was the guy from the shipper, ran me back and said that they couldn't get hold of their customer, which was customer 2, and that really they should leave it up to the customer to sort out, not for me as a delivery driver. So I waited. I did say to Simon, because he said he would get his customer to call customer 1. Shipper Steve was going to call the customer 2 to let customer 1 know, Simon, who's with me, that what they're going to do, whether they're going to take 2 pallets or 1 pallet. I said to Steve on the line, Simon hasn't got a phone, so I don't know how you're going to let him know this. So I went back to Simon and I said, they're going to call you. And he raised his eyebrows, and I said, there's nothing else I can do now. And he was a bit miffed at this. I think he wasn't too bad with me, but I could just tell that he was he was really friendly at the start, and he was a little bit kind of miffed at this point. But he walked off. So I was waiting in my van. This is when I was sort of checking up, doing all the Google searches at this point. And so I thought, at this point now, I can't intervene anymore. I'm just going to stand back and let them resolve this. But the problem is that the shipper had an old reference number. The new reference number was for 2 pallets, which I couldn't take. The customer 3 needed this stuff today, ASAP. They were desperate for this, which is what customer 1 had told me, Simon. So I waited, and eventually I got a call back from the shipper that gave me the job, the lady. And no, I didn't, did I? In the end, no. Sorry, in the end, didn't get a call back from them. Sorry. I spoke to them later. I spoke to them and told them what happened. So in the end, Simon came back and said, to get this resolved, what I'll do is I'll give you 1 pallet now to take with the correct reference number and the correct paperwork. And if you just tell them, customer 3, that we will get the rest of it delivered at some point. But his point was, he was washing his hands of the delivery side of it. But as far as customer 1 was concerned, delivery was nothing to do with him. It was customer 2's sort of issue. So he was just wanted to get me off his site with a pallet, because I wouldn't take 2 pallets, just want me off with 1. The shipper was saying they were washing their hands of trying to help me out because they wanted the customers to do it between themselves, customer 2 and customer 1. So I wasn't really getting any help from anyone. So in the end, I told the shipper I've been given 1 pallet with this new reference number. I'm going to take that, and then this is when I spoke to my original lady just to let her know what I was doing, and she was fine with that. So I got it strapped up, and made my way. And when he put the pallet on, my van did go down by 2 or 3 inches, so it was definitely a significant weight. And there's no way I would want to take 2 of those pallets. I'm really pleased that I stuck to my guns about that. And he was even saying at this point, it doesn't really understand. Oh yeah, so Simon, customer 1, was saying, what's happened here is they've tried to do this on the cheap. They've not. They should have brought in a truck for this, but they've tried to do it in a van. And I just sort of said, yeah, I suppose that's true. And I don't know what's happened. But anyway, so I've got now this load on, strapped up really securely next to my bulkhead, between in the middle of my van, and I've got the whole shebang. I've got a blanket over the top, 2 edging protectors, a strap over the top, a strap around the pallet. It wasn't going anywhere, and right next to my bulkhead. So the actual pallet was touching my bulkhead. The actual items weren't. They were sort of smaller than the pallet itself. So I made my way towards the postcode, but by this, oh yes, waiting time. Oh, I made a bit of a mistake here, I think. So I recorded that I arrived at 12 o'clock, which is fair enough because that's when I was meant to arrive. And although I'd been spending half an hour trying to find Simon, I put 12 o'clock as my arrival time. By the time we got loaded, it was, and I was off site. Actually, no, the off site took a bit of time as well. There's a little cherry on the going off site, which I'll tell you about in a minute. So I called the shipper for waiting time. It was 12:50-ish by the time I left the site, but I estimated that I'd spent 40 minutes waiting and about 10 minutes loading the stuff. And so what I did was I said I had been waiting for 40 minutes when I spoke to the shipper. And I went back to the original lady who gave me the job, and I said, I'd like to have some waiting time for this, please. I've been waiting here for 40 minutes, so that's the first half of it. So I want to have £7.50, which is, I explained to her that my terms are the first half hour for free. No, sorry, let me go back a step, I've gone ahead a bit. So she said, I said I'd have a waiting time. I didn't say the amount. I was hoping they'd be fair. And she said, I talked to my manager, she went off the line, came back to me and said, I'll give you a £5 for waiting time. And I felt that wasn't quite enough. So then I explained my terms. My terms are, first half an hour is free, for every quarter of an hour is £7.50. Because then after an hour, that adds up to £30. So half an hour is £15, an hour is £30. So the key thing here is every half hour. She said to me, oh, you haven't been there 15 minutes then, so she was wanting me to pay me nothing. I was saying, no, I've been here for half an hour, that's free, you get that for free. But everything after that, I start charging for. So every quarter of an hour is £7.50. She didn't get it. She said, well, you haven't been there for quarter of an hour yet. So I just said to her, right, okay, I would like £7.50, please. It's made it really simple for her. And she said, okay, I'll get back to you. She had to go back to her manager to get authorisation to give me an extra £2.50, which I thought was rather silly and didn't show the company in the best of light. They can't empower their employees to make a judgment of £2.50 or even the £5 in the first place. So maybe she's new. I got the sense that she might be inexperienced from the conversations I had. But in the end, I fought for my £7.50, and I left the site. And I left, and I thought, by the time I left it, it's 50 minutes after. I thought I should have charged £15 because by the time I'm actually off the site, it's 50 minutes. I should have included the 10 minutes loading in my waiting time, but because I thought this was meant to be an hour's job: arrive, pick up, an hour later, drop off, one pallet. I've spent 50 minutes here, and for that 50 minutes, I'm getting £7.50, and now I've got to do the job. So, and also, all the effort I went to try and support the load going on, which not every driver would do. Anyway, so I resolved that I just get this job done and get out of here. Right, the cherry on the ice in the cake. So you can see I wasn't in the best of moods when I left the site, and I got a bit lost getting off because it's a really busy site. It's a chemical factory, And there's lots of hazard protection stuff going on, and lots of health and safety stuff you have to adhere to. Anyway, I got to the barrier, and the barrier to getting out was a barrier with the weighbridge and a barrier without a weighbridge. So I, this time, chose the one without the weighbridge just to get out. He said, go to the barrier, stay there, and then they'll let you out. I sat there for 2 or 3 minutes and nothing happened with the barrier. So I went reversed, went onto the weighbridge. Again, there's a button high up. I can't reach it without getting my van. I thought, I'm not doing this. I got out of the van, walked to the production office, which was just next door, and just said, how do I get out of here? And then there's a guy came back to his desk and just said, I'll let you out now. And I just thought, fine. Just what a nightmare this was. So I got off site. So from arriving at the reception at 11:30 to getting off site at 10 to 1, I got £7.50 for that. So I drove towards where I was going to. It was Worksop. I thought Worksop was a really good place to get work from. So I thought I had a good chance. I was aiming to get there for 1:30 originally, so I'll get offloaded and be ready to do my job at 1:30. I wasn't going to get there now for quite late, for about 2 o'clock now. So on the way, I just checked my booking, and she hadn't added on my £7.50. I left it for about 3/4 of an hour. Just before I got to the place, I rang up again. I spoke to Steve this time, the guy who I spoke to before on Shipper. I said, I haven't had the amount put on. I agreed for waiting. He said, I'll have to get back to you. So he put me on hold, went off, spoke to somebody. He said, oh yeah, I'll do that for you. So then he put the £7.50 on before I got to my destination. So I got to the postcode, and it took me to a country park, and I was looking out for the lodges part of the country park, and I drove into the country park and must have drove for about 10 minutes in there along these roads, following the sat nav, but it was quite sparsely populated. There wasn't a lot going on in there. It's like a woodland country park area, and I couldn't find these lodges anywhere. I got to the where the sat nav took me, and it took me all the way through the country park to the other end, to the other gate at the other end. And then there was nothing there. I had no idea where these lodges were. So I looked up another road. I was going to call the ship again, but I thought they're not going to know. They've been pretty useless so far. So I turned around, had a look at Google Maps, and luckily on Google Maps it had the lodges on there. And it was about half a mile further on down the road, the opposite way. So when I came to my Google point, I carried on for half a mile. I'd got there, and I got to the entrance point and it told me where the lodges were. And then I had to find where I was going to deliver. So I went down this road, found reception. Reception did know, thankfully, where I had to go. I had to go back out to the service area. So I went back out, found the service area, and the guy was there who knew what he was doing. He was really pleased to see me. He said, I'm running out of this stuff, got one left, I need to get this. And so he directed me down to where the septic tank was, and then we handballed them off. And then the last little nugget that made the job difficult, there's absolutely no internet where I was. I had to drive all the way off site until I could finish off the job, and then get it all signed, finished on CX. So by the time I was off site, it was 2:30, and I could then start looking for another job. So there's a lot going on in that second delivery. I think I covered everything. My concern was, is it ADR? Because I'm not taking ADR. And as a new driver, if you don't know about ADR, it's worth finding out. There's loads of people who talk about it on YouTube. You just can't take it unless you're especially licensed to do that work. Also, the weight of 2 pallets would have been an issue, so I'm glad that I stood my ground about that. But the reason why I'm saying all this is it got complicated because there was 3 customers and nobody really wanted to take accountability to help me. Everyone sort of washed their hands of it. I was just left trying to be helpful, but ended up not really being able to do anything. I just had to wait until someone came with a decision. And all you can do as a new driver, or as a driver, I suppose, is communicate with the shipper because they're the person that's calling you, that's employing you. So I try to do that, but even some shippers aren't that useful. 2 people in the shipper's office I had to communicate with, and get messages between them. Actually, to be fair, 3 people, including my waiting time and the manager, had to authorise that. So communication is really important, and yeah, the situation was. I felt that I was in a situation which was awkward, and I couldn't do much to make it go quicker, apart from what I did do. And I suppose this. I wanted to go into detail because this is part of what this job is. Sometimes this job is about awkwardness, awkward people, or awkward jobs, or lack of communication. And you just got to find a way in which you can deal with that to the best of your ability. Most jobs are really simple. You go somewhere which is really clearly labelled. You pick up, they want you there. You take the item to where they want you to go. It's really clearly labelled. You drop them off, and they're happy. 90% of the jobs are do like that, but it's 10% where you make your money. As a professional driver, I think it's that 10% where things might go wrong, where you kind of make or break your service. As a self-employed courier, it's those 10% which you have to kind of really be able to deal with in a professional and reliable way. Right, let's move on. It's been a long video, but I knew it would be. I at this point I had 2 jobs, £62.50 and £60, and I was basically in the middle of the afternoon, so it wasn't going as well as I hoped it would go. I was in a reasonably good area of workshop. So my next job I got was from Rotherham to Liverpool. I got myself £80 for that job. It was about 75 miles. This one also did go wrong, but not quite as badly. This was for the shipper that I've not done much work before. I've seen their jobs come up a few times. They're a smaller shipper, and the guy who called me was really friendly. And I've said this before. If you're friendly to me, I'll run through walls for you as a driver. And so he asked me. He said, "Can you get to the Wirral in time from Rotherham?" When I answered the phone, and I said I'd do a direct delivery. I'd go straight there. Finding traffic was okay. I should be all right. Because I was assuming that an hour and a half from Rotherham to the Wirral was enough time. And the time of the booking I had was between 2:35 and 3:35 pickup. And it had to be delivered by 5 o'clock. So I thought, well, if the booking is between 2:35 and 3:35, then maybe an hour and a half should be easy enough to do. I arrived on site at 3:15, but maybe 3:10. So I thought I had plenty of time. So I'll be mindful that this is urgent. So I went straight to the pickup guy and said, "I've got a delivery for you, going to the Wirral." He knew where I was, and then I went straight back to my van while he was sorting that out. And I put into Google Maps the actual postcode to find out how long it would actually take. Because then I knew whether I had 5 or 10 minutes spare. Put it in. 2 hours it was going to take, and I rang Spalding immediately and said, "This is going to take me 2 hours if I leave immediately. It's 3:15 now, so we're not going to get there by 5 o'clock no matter what." So he said, "I'll get back to you." So the guy that was at the loading point wanted me to be off site because he was waiting to put his other stuff on a pallet. And I said, I can't take this yet because I might not be taking it because I might not get there on time. I have to wait for the shipper to tell me. So he was waiting there, and he was saying, "I'm leaving work in 10 minutes. He kept saying to me, "I've got a courier coming. If you can't take it, I'll put it on the courier's van. I'll put it with the courier." I was confused by that because I thought, well, I'm a courier. What do you mean if I can't take it to a courier? But I think what he meant was he had a pallet going to the same customer for the following morning. And what he was going to do was put the items I had onto the same pallet and have it delivered by a pallet company, which he was calling a courier. So he needed to know quickly, was I taking his 2 items or was I leaving them? So he could get that wrapped up on the pallet for what I'm going to assume was the pallet lorry. And I was waiting. I waited for 10 minutes and no call came back. So it was 3 now. I rang the shipper and said, what's going on? And he said, I was supposed to call you. And he said, can you take these to our warehouse instead? So I immediately said, yep. I told the guy I was with, I will take them. You put them on now. So I was talking to 2 people at once, which is not good for me. Someone next to me, I was telling him I would load it. Someone on the phone saying I would go to his pet depot. So I kind of got that dealt with without getting too stressed. And then, got the new postcode. No, sorry, got loaded up, got it all strapped down, got out of his way, got to sign my pod, and then got out of his way. And then I pulled over and then put the new postcode in, and then made my way to Liverpool now. So it was the Wirral originally, and now it's going to Liverpool. And it was about 2 hours and it was about 2.5 hours now because the traffic was obviously I was going right over rush hour traffic. So rather arriving originally by 5, I was now going to arrive at Liverpool by 6ish, and that was tight as it was. And as I was driving, that time went. The traffic got busier, and that time went down. So one situation where I had like an hour and 5 minutes to go, and then it was an hour. I drove for about 5 minutes. It was an hour and 5 minutes to go still. I hate that situation. You're never sure what's up with the traffic. So in the end, I did get it delivered to the depot of the shipper. And on the way up, I was thinking, I've just realised now, this is more miles and more time. And I've got to go, and I realised at the time I went over a toll bridge, I had to pay £2 for toll. I thought, I want to ask for some more money for this. I said, well, what's fair? I was thinking, well, 12 miles extra, £2 for the toll. Well, really, I want a £5 for the mileage and £2 for the toll. So really, I want to ask for £7. But then what about going back? I need to get 12 miles back to where I would have been if I hadn't have done this job. So it's actually 24 miles extra I'm doing. And then I thought, well, actually, I also think about it in terms of time. I was meant originally to be finished this job by 5 o'clock. I'm not going to be finished by half past 6. That's at least an hour of my time extra. So I thought, what's fair? I thought, tenner. A tenner seems like a fair price to ask for as extra. So I had in my head, I'll ask for some extra money. And I was going to call the shipper at the end and tell him, I have the commission. I've loaded now. Before I finish it, let me ask for 10 extra for this. I'm sure I would have got it. When I arrived, there was a guy waiting at the depot, and I was about 5 past 6 by the time the truck got there. And we had a bit of a chat, and he said he was the boss of the company. And we were having a little chat. And I said, where'd you come from? And I said, I come from Peterborough. And he said, I've got a job going there. It's on one of my vans. And he was definitely thinking about giving it to me, but then he decided that his van had another job in Peterborough today. So he had a job going on one of his vans to P14, and then that guy, his employee, was going to Peterborough afterwards to collect something. And so he did genuinely think about giving me his work, but obviously it made more sense for him to keep it with his own driver. So I kind of got distracted by all this and got back in my van, and then I got him to sign a pod for me because there was no paperwork given to me from the customer. And there was paperwork, sorry. Paperwork I was given, I gave to him unsigned because he'd have to get the customer to sign that. So I didn't bother getting that signed as my pod. So I got a blank pod signed from him, and then got out of his way because he was obviously wanting to get home. And then I uploaded that, and as I looked, I thought, I haven't asked for money. And I just thought, I can't do that now. I can't have this conversation with the manager, with the company boss, and not mention money, and then ring up who is someone else in the company and say, I'd like to make some money. Because I just have using a learning experience. And I said to myself, what I'll do is, I've made a contact here, I've done a good job, I feel, I've done them a favour, I haven't asked for extra money. Next time I do a job for them, they might remember me, and hopefully it'll lead to bigger things in the future. So I kind of chalked it up to experience and hopefully a bit of networking. Right, so now it was 6:30 and I was quite tired at this point last night. And obviously it was very dark, but I'd only made £203 and it wasn't enough. But I was in a good area. I was in, well, no, it wasn't a good area. I was in Liverpool. Let me clarify that. In terms of work, I was in not a great area. So I thought I'd, because there was no jobs coming up out of Liverpool at that time, about 6:30. But I was pretty sure, because I've sort of seen jobs from, I think, Runcorn, Warrington area. I thought, well, if I head down towards the M6 area, sort of Warrington way, um, I'll see whether jobs come up for tonight. And I was really hopeful to get a long-paying job getting anywhere from sort of about 7:30. So I drove down to Warrington. I stopped at services to look for work, and there were jobs coming up. There were definitely jobs coming up, and this is where I kind of regret a little bit what I did, but then I didn't. Then I don't. I'll tell you, I was really divided about what I should do at this point. So I got to Warrington, and there was jobs there, and they were going sort of Warrington to Southampton, sort of 11:30 to Southampton at 4 o'clock. Warrington to Bridgenorth, I think it was, sort of get another late start, 11:30 start. And I thought, I'll do those jobs, but I'm going to be quite tired, so I need a rest. So I need to know quickly if I'm going to get them or not. There were other jobs going. I think there's a job going perhaps to Hull. I can't remember. There's a few choices. There was actually one going to Peterborough from Manchester, I think it was. I was within distance getting it. But before I got a chance to quote, it'd gone. So that made me think, oh, there's drivers around here looking for work. I looked at the CX map, and there was probably a good splattering of active drivers at that point. So I thought, I can't go too expensive, but I don't want to go too low because I'm going to make my day really long, and I'm only going to do a job if it's going to make it really worthwhile. So I put the bids I was putting on were sort of £1 a mile for the job itself. Some of these were long wheelbase jobs. £1 a mile plus a bit to get to the job, so probably it's 20 quid extra, something like that. And I was thinking, would I do it for cheaper? Like the one to Southampton at 4 o'clock in the morning, I put on a pretty high bid for and didn't get it. But it would have been a really long day. But I would have done it for a high price, but I would have done it for a lower price, because it would have made a really long day for not much money. And so I had this quandary: do I do a job, put a high bid on, but probably get outbid because of other drivers, or do I try and go low but then make my day really long? And I'm not sure I want to do that either. So in the end, I put a few bids on that were kind of prices I would do the jobs for. So good prices, £1 a mile plus. And these are all for long distance jobs. And what surprised me, there was quite a lot of long wheelbase jobs at this time as well. I thought a lot of the work I thought might be small wheelbase, or small van, sorry. But there's plenty of stuff for my van. And in the end, I resolved that I'll just get some sleep because I was getting quite tired. So then I looked for jobs for the morning as well. And then I got a crisis of confidence about the whole thing, because I thought, in the morning I'm going to wake up and it's going to be maybe not hundreds, but it's going to feel like hundreds of drivers here. There's going to be probably a good 50, 60, 70 drivers in my area wanting a job, and I'm going to have to go cheap to get out of this area. So I kind of resolved I had to get some sleep last night, but I wasn't really very hopeful about this morning. I thought the only thing I can do really is get up a bit earlier and to see what happens. So that was the end of my day yesterday. One last thing to say about yesterday. I did I have previously packed a bit of a new tramping kit for the winter, and last time I tramped I didn't use it, but this time I did. I've got a double duvet, 16.5 ton duvet, and I put that on my camp bed, put put the tin bag and me inside that, wrapped up around it. It was amazing. I was so toasty last night. Just a simple little solution. Didn't need a hot water bowl, that would be a faff to do. Just one sleeping bag and one double duvet wrapped around me, and I'm fine. So I think I found a solution for winter tramping, at least to sleep at night. In the morning it's still cold. Um, so yeah, that worked. I was in a really quiet place. I used Park for Night app to find where to park. It was a really quiet place. It was a bit dodgy, I must say. When I parked up, there were people on bikes sort of going past me, a few people walking past me. It was on the edge of a country park, and I thought the bit I was in was a bit like a wasteland. It was tarmacked, but it looked a bit dodgy. But I resolved that um, I was tired enough to stay where I was, and once I got into bed, didn't worry about it. And when I woke up in the morning, it was a car park, and there were other cars sort of parked around me, or beginning to park up. I think it might be near a school. There were school kids going to school, sort of walking past me. Yeah, so that was my day yesterday. So let me give you my stats for the day. They weren't impressive. I would say I felt that yesterday was a bit of a grind. I ground out 3 CX jobs that kind of, in the end, got me a reasonable amount of money, but nothing, no great shakes. And it's yeah, it's interesting. I this time last year when I was watching YouTube videos of people doing this, work was really busy, and I definitely feel it's less busy this year than it was a year ago. Yeah, so anyway, stats wise, so let me tell you about that for yesterday. Some of it is a bit of an estimate because I forgot to write down, forgot to record my mileage this morning. So I put down an estimate of what it was last night. I started driving and I put down what I thought I'd done. And the time wise, I forgot exactly what time I finished, but I put an estimate down. So here we go. Roughly for this today, I worked 11 and a quarter hours, and I did 257 miles, 257. I was trying to get £1 a mile. I didn't quite do it because of the going from Liverpool to Warrington at the end. Now I was about 30 miles I drove, dead, just to try and get some extra work at the end. So, but other than that, I had a reasonably close to £1 a mile day. I've still got fuel in my tank from last week, so because yesterday was a Monday, I haven't filled up yet, so I haven't got a new average fuel price. So it's still 15.85 pence per litre. Fuel's gone down by about a penny from last week, so it won't be more than that this week. It'll be less, if anything. So at 15.85 pence per litre, that amount of mileage, I spent £40.73 yesterday. As I said, I did 3 jobs. £60 from Spalding to Lincoln, £62.50. That includes the waiting time. That mammoth job from it was Bardney Airfield to Clumber. Oh, to work stop. It was Clumber Road. Anyway, and then the last one was the job that I did to Liverpool from Rotherham. That was £80. Should have got an extra tenner for it, but I didn't. So £203 in total, 203. That means I made a grand total after fuel of £162 yesterday, 162, which isn't, I said, very good. It's okay. It's below what I really want to make. So we'll see how today goes as to whether it makes the week bad or good overall. Right. Is there anything else I want to say? Probably is, but I'm going to leave it here. So yeah, I hope you are doing well. I hope all you drivers out there are getting work. I think it's going to be a tough new year for everyone, unless you've got your own sort of work, or maybe even maybe even if you're not working will be. So yeah, I shall let you know how today goes at the end of today. Thank you for listening. Farewell.